Failure is underrated. Even in this case, my case, I mean, it's difficult to say I love failure, but it really suits me well. Everyone has their color, right? There are a ton of people, and some demons, out here branding success, selling blueprints, and packaging the grind into digestible motivational reels. Meanwhile, failure is just sitting in the corner, smelling faintly of burned Pop-Tarts. Burned Pop-Tarts do sound good though. And missed deadlines, waiting for someone to notice its strange beauty and delicious taste. I've failed a lot. Failed at recording clean audio for a podcast episode multiple times. Failed at uploading videos that didn't glitch halfway through. Failed at staying consistent with an idea that I swore was going to be the thing. Failed by losing at times when I was professionally fighting. Failed in relationships. And failed at achieving societal or familial standards. Sometimes the failure is technical. Sometimes it's emotional. And sometimes it's just me forgetting to hit record and wondering why the silence feels so loud. Failure is embarrassing. If you don't believe me, I really don't know if you've been alive yet. It stings. I would use this salt and vinegar Pringles on a cut lip analogy, but I used that already. So, I guess that was me using it. But it's also honest. It refuses to dress itself up as anything else. And that's why, in a strange way, I keep coming back to it. I say strange a lot. It would be easy to say I intentionally fail, but I mean coming back to it during metacognition or contemplation. Because it feels more trustworthy than the glittering facade of success. I mean, success does look good to those who can't see through it, or how much failure lies behind it. But if you're listening to this, I think you're different. I mean, as different as someone can be, given that we're all the same, in a way. One of the greatest things, and to some the most annoying about failure, is that it doesn't just vanish. It stacks up, like a pile of unsent letters or half-finished songs. A broken live stream becomes a story you tell later with a laugh. A blog post nobody reads becomes a hidden gem that someone stumbles across 2 years later and writes to you about. That career path you pursued aggressively for 10 years becomes something people are amazed that you ever did. A YouTube rant with 7 views becomes the weirdest breadcrumb in your trail. Proof that you were here, trying, failing, and still showing up. When I scroll through my old work, I see ghosts of myself fumbling. I see me getting the lighting wrong, the edits clumsy, the words too sharp or too soft. And despite this, I don't delete them. Actually, I deleted 200 hours of the podcast publicly, but it was because it was creating problems for other people, not because of shame. These are the artifacts. Failures are the clay pots that cracked in the kiln, but still somehow ended up on the shelf. They tell the story of the process, not just the product. Sometimes, when I'm in a kinder mood to myself, I think of these failures as a personal museum, or a horror show, depending on how you look at it. Each misstep is a weird, let's make that super weird, exhibit. Think, here lies the time I thought I could upload 3 videos a week, which was a horrible failure, by the way. Or the infamous podcast episode where my mom angrily called in the middle of it. She asked to be removed. There's something weird you should know, though. I feel like I say that too much, don't I? People connect to failures more than the polished victories. They'll forgive the shaky audio if they sense the heart behind it. They'll forget the rough draft if they see the fingerprints of someone trying, someone reaching. Sometimes, if you lose, but you're drenched in your own blood, people still show you love. Was that blood stuff too much? I don't know. Sometimes failure is the doorway to intimacy. I've had messages from strangers saying, "I love that video where your son knocked over the mic," or "that blog post that made no sense. That was exactly what I needed." Failure rips the mask right off. I think it shows that you're not a machine producing content, but a human being fumbling through it, just like them. Failure in that sense makes room for other people. It levels the ground. I think it says, "I'm not perfect," in case it wasn't obvious. You don't have to be either. And weirdly enough, that's where community begins. There's something almost mystical and ego slapping, or ego destroying, about failing in public. It's a kind of ritual humiliation that strips away the pretense. The mystics of old spoke about annihilation of the ego. I live streamed it by accident. Horrible day, by the way. Every failure feels like the divine reminding me, you're not here to be flawless. You're here to be human, to stumble, to laugh at the stumble, and to keep stumbling forward. I've started to think of each failure as a small ritual offering, a sacrifice of pride, an initiation, like a mystery school or super lame frat, into the long, messy lineage of creators, mystics, and fools who dared to try something ridiculous and fell flat on their faces. Sometimes that's where real ascendance takes place, in the breaking, not the building. When I zoom out, which is rare when dealing with real life, failure starts to look like poetry. Not the shiny, rhyming kind. More like jagged, free verse scrawled on a napkin. It interrupts, surprises, and destabilizes. It refuses to play by the rules of plot and progress. Failure is unpredictable. It's the poem that keeps slipping out of meter. The verse that cuts off mid-line. And somehow that's what makes it more beautiful, because it reflects real life more than any perfect rhyme scheme ever could. And maybe that's why I've grown so fond of it, because failure reminds me that life is less like a motivational speech and more like a weird open mic night where everyone forgets their lines but still gets a round of applause. If you've been listening to this or anything else I've ever said, you know by now that I don't have answers. Clearly, I just have experiments, half-baked, or even raw metaphors, and failures on learning to see as companions. I don't think failure is the enemy. It's more of a punctuation, strange pauses that make the whole thing sing. So next time you trip, maybe don't curse the stumble. Maybe listen. Failure has its own music. And sometimes, if you stay quiet enough, which is hard for me to be honest, you'll realize it's been playing your awesomely catchy song all along. Song all along. That rhymed. Weird.